After the modest success of Batman Begins, there was no guarantee of a sequel. Despite the tease of a potential confrontation between Batman and his arch-nemesis Joker at the end of Begins, Christopher Nolan wasn't sure about returning to expand his more grounded take on the Batman world. He moved on to work on another project after Begins, with the release of his film The Prestige, starring Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman on October 20th, 2006. After the success of that film, he began work on a sequel to Batman Begins. He enlisted his brother Jonathan to co-write the screenplay alongside him for the sequel, based on a story he crafted with David S. Goyer. They wanted to be more ambitious in scope while maintaining the unique identity that was established in Begins. The story would shift away from the trappings of an origin story and examine the difficulties and moral dilemmas that would arise during Bruce Wayne's mission against crime. This would expand the idea that was hinted at in the ending to Begins: escalation. This escalation would find the criminals in whom Batman inspired fear desperately seeking a solution to their problem. They would turn to someone they didn't fully understand, and as a result, unleashed anarchy into the streets of Gotham. To explore this theme, there would be two major elements of the plot. The first would be the introduction of Harvey Dent, Gotham's White Knight in the fight against crime, and his struggle with working within the confines of the justice system. The second major element would be the introduction of the counterbalance to Batman, Joker. Joker would perfectly embody the antithesis of Batman. While Batman believes in Gotham and its people and in a specific set of principles, Joker represents chaos and anarchy, believing in the absolute corruption of Gotham and its people and attempting to expose the contradictions inherent within their civilized order. A dichotomy is established between the White Knight Harvey Dent and the Dark Knight Batman. Dent represents pure intentions and idealism in the face of corruption and injustice, Gotham's very own Bobby Kennedy in his crusade against organized crime. Batman represents the extra-legal violence believed to be necessary in the short term to eventually save Gotham. The constant internal battle within the two sides, with Batman continuing to discover the limitations of his own ethics and Dent's attempts at reform frustrated, showcases the need for the two to work together. Batman needs Dent to be the public face of his battle against corruption. He's a lightning rod in the fight against the apathy and fear which has suffocated the people of Gotham. Batman doesn't want to continue with his persona forever, but instead to serve as an inspiration for the people themselves to take back the city. His ethics face their limitations in the face of Joker, an agent of chaos rather than a person with any sense of values or principles. Batman doesn't understand how to fight against the Joker, with his usual violence proving completely ineffectual. This is the escalation that Gordon warned about, and Batman finds himself unable to figure out how to win. This is the core of the story that the Nolan brothers and David S. Goyer crafted, one that delved deeper into ethical questions than the previous film. Bruce Wayne doesn't need to go on a journey of psychological evolution. Instead, Harvey Dent's psychological transformation is what is given the deep dive. The film would introduce two villains that were in previous Batman live-action films because the belief was that now that the first film established the world, they could reintroduce those characters into a more realistic and grounded Batman universe. Christopher Nolan decided to film large portions of the film with IMAX cameras, a first for a non-documentary feature film. This decision was working against the trends of the time, in an era defined by the transition away from film cameras towards newer and slicker digital cameras. Nolan zagged and went to as best of a film camera as he could find. This would be very expensive, but would be a decision that would redefine the IMAX format. The film continued Nolan's insistence on prioritizing practical effects over CGI. He wanted the film to look, sound, and feel as real and as epic as possible, wanting to make going to the film an event in itself. He brought back the team from the first film, with him and his wife Emma Thomas producing alongside Charles Roven, with Wally Pfister returning as cinematographer and Lee Smith as editor. Nathan Crawley would return as production designer alongside returning composers Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard. Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, and Gary Oldman would return to headline the cast. Newcomers Heath Ledger and Aaron Eckhart were brought in to portray Joker and Harvey Dent respectively. Katie Holmes was replaced by Maggie Gyllenhaal as she decided to work on the Callie Corey film Mad Money. The Dark Knight was released on July 18, 2008 in the United States. The film was met with an overwhelmingly positive critical reception. Roger Ebert, who loved the previous film in the series, gave a resoundingly positive review. Quote, Batman isn't a comic book anymore. Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight is a haunted film that leaps beyond its origins and becomes an engrossing tragedy. It creates characters we come to care about. That's because of the performances, because of the direction, because of the writing, and because of the superlative technical quality of the entire production. This film, and to a lesser degree Iron Man, redefine the possibilities of the comic book movie. End quote. The film was an enormous box office success, making over $1 billion worldwide. It added over $300 million through home video, with its DVD release ranking amongst the top 5 best-selling DVDs of all time. The film has cemented itself in the history of not only superhero cinema, but cinema more broadly, as one of the most influential and popular films of all time. This video is one of many that have covered the iconic film. All I have to offer is my opinion on the film. So with that being said, what do I think of the film? Do I think it should be viewed as a masterpiece? Let's explore The Dark Knight. The film does a very good job of expanding the scope of the story, with a wider variety of types of scenes, times, and locations, with notably more scenes that take place during the day. The action feels grander, with the KZ fighting method enhanced by the new shooting style Nolan deployed for the film. With adjustments made to the Batsuit, Nolan fully explores the potential of shooting Batman action scenes, no longer constrained by his desire to match the viewer's perception with those who are fighting Batman. We get much better executed fight scenes as a result. You can see the improvement that Nolan has made in this area, with the usage of the IMAX cameras enhancing these strides in filmmaking technique. It has been much discussed how the film feels more like a crime film than a traditional Batman film, and this is seen in the types of scenes we get. The excellent prologue featuring the bank heist and the jump to get Lau showcases how Nolan's vision is evolving. He has no more need to tie himself to the material in a way to prove himself to Batman fans. Now that he has them along for the ride, he can take the series anywhere he wants. The film is expertly edited, gaining a strong sense of momentum as each minute passes. We get a constant trickle of either new information or exciting action set pieces to further enthrall us into the narrative. The editing is then matched excellently with James Newton Howard and Hans Zimmer's beautiful score, which gives the film an epic feel. This flow, which is established in the editing, writing, action choreography, and the score, feels truly unique among superhero films. Many have attempted to emulate, but none have succeeded at elevating their grounded material into this epic of a scale. Nolan walks a tightrope masterfully, with each beat hitting the audience exactly when it needs to, exactly how it needs to. The cleverness that I found eye-roll inducing at times in the first film is refined in this one, with several lines that bring a smile to my face. This is an excellently written film, with the themes being brought out in a way that tells us more about ourselves than about the film. The film, of course, strays into the, at the time, heated political discourse surrounding the War on Terror. The film's discussion of mass surveillance technology, interrogation techniques, and terrorism is done in a way that feels like it represents different sides at the same time. Seemingly, Nolan took his grounded approach and attempted to reflect the social circumstances of the era in a way that didn't feel overly allegorical. The film has been read in many different ways by many different people. People from completely different political perspectives come to completely different interpretations of the material. Some posit that the film is an endorsement of the Bush administration's tactics in the War on Terror, while others find a sly critique of those very tactics and an examination of the corrupting influence of mass surveillance. I think that the film tackles its social commentary in a way that is unique, if ultimately a bit frustrating. However, that only makes it more interesting to dive deeper. The film, of course, is buoyed by excellent performances, with the performance of Heath Ledger in particular having received so much attention that it feels unnecessary to go into too much depth here. It's of course an amazing performance, an iconic representation of the character, completely defining Joker for an entire generation. It feels weird to read that there was so much backlash and worry about how he would do compared to Jack Nicholson. They feel like completely different characters, with Nicholson's Joker serving as a quirky and silly villain rather than anyone truly terrifying, while Ledger gives us a look into the abyss. Despite all the praise I have lavished on the film, it's not my favorite Batman film. I feel as though the film succeeds in a lot of ways based on its detachment from the character. Nolan has constructed a beautiful examination of urban crime and the unique fears of a post-9/11 world. However, I still enjoy Batman Returns and Batman Mask of the Phantasm more as Batman films. This is a distinction that is important to me, but in no way takes away from Nolan's film, which I think is worthy of the title masterpiece.